Now, here's today's host, Dr. Monika Buerger.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to ChiroSecure's Look to the Children show. I'm your host for today, Dr. Monika Buerger, and I am beyond excited once again to have an amazing guest. I was so pumped for today. It's unbelievable. I have the amazing Dr. Amy Haas with us. I have secretly deemed her the Chiro Nerd Mama.
I love it.
So thank you for being here. Let me tell the audience about ChiroSecure. I was a little late on the trigger reading through your bio and stuff, so I was doing it on the way to the office today, and I was like, oh my gosh, okay. She's got a laundry list of amazing achievements. She's got a master's and a PhD in biochemistry. Voila! She's done postgraduate work at Harvard. And she had a position there studying enzymology, which I was like, oh, I got to talk to this woman. Well, I am going to talk to this woman. I am talking to this woman. Where she coincidentally was in the same building and where she met her chiropractic introduction. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. And that was Dr. Stephen
Franson, and there are no coincidences in this universe.
No, that's crazy. She is likes to put the pieces of the puzzle together. So she's known, we're going to talk about something she's known for coming up here in a minute. But her specialty is digging in, finding out the mystery pieces, looking at how we as chiropractors, why we have seen these profound changes all these years, and why can that be happening? She loves to study something that I've had a relationship. I joke around that I have a love affair with the vagus nerve, the vestibular system, and others. And in fact, years ago, I started talking about the vagus nerve about 15 years ago, and everybody said, oh, that Buerger, she just loves to talk about the vagus nerve. And so now I get to nerd out with my chiro nerd friend here. Anyway, so Dr. Amy, she studies the microbiome, neuroendocrinology, vagus nerve, heart rate variability. How does that fit into the paradigm of chiropractic? Why do we see it important in chiropractic? She's a private practice. And by the way, happy 9th birthday to your practice.
Thank you.
Had a recent birthday. She has teamed up with Dr. Bruce Steinberg and his lovely bride in something that I've got to check into, chironerds.com. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. It's still in process. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's in the process. So she can maybe elaborate on that a little bit about where she is in the process with that. But anyway, without further ado, to the world, Dr. Amy Haas. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Did I get your last name right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. German?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So see, I knew we have to be sisters from another mother from another lifetime at some point in time.
Aha! There you go. It's funny. 3 years ago today, I was actually in Germany.
Oh, awesome! Yeah,
it's my first trip over there.
Yeah, beautiful country, right?
Yes, very.
Well, thank you for hanging out. I was when I scored you on the show, I was like, big win.
I'm super honored to be here. I've been looking forward to this.
Okay, so you are known for, I guess, with a little expression of, we know what we know. What is the you know? What's your expression? I didn't get that one right. It's all connected.
It's all connected. Go on.
It's all connected in some way, some of which we know and some of what you don't know. Did I get that right?
All right. You betcha. Mm-hmm.
All right. So tell the world what you mean by that.
You can think of the body as individual parts, or you can put it together like a puzzle and think of it as the sum of its parts. And the sum of its parts is much more intricate and elaborate than each of the parts independently. And all the parts of the body are connected in ways, some we know, some we don't know. We're finding new science coming forth about a number of different topics. There was a paper that was just discussed last week about the possibility that stress on bone in mice instigates the adrenal stress response. which was fascinating. Just a couple of years ago, we had the discovery of the CNS lymphatic system and the glymphatic system. And all of a sudden, it turns out the appendix actually has a function in the body.
Yeah, go
So
figure.
I know, right? So all of these different discoveries about human physiology are still happening, and we don't truly understand all of the puzzle pieces of the human body just yet. I'm not sure we will in our lifetimes, and that's okay. That's a beautiful puzzle just to kind of observe and say, not can we control it, but how can we empower it?
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Because it's all network, right? It's
Mhm.
all this networking that happens, and I have a feeling you're a lot like me. You find one piece, and then it leads you to a rabbit hole, which opens up another. Next thing you know, it's 4 in the morning, and you're like, okay, I've got 20 papers open, and I've just opened up this huge rabbit hole.
We definitely are soul sisters. Oh yeah.
Uh, but I have to ask you a question because, again, forgive me, I just got to read this on the way to the office today.
Mhm.
You talk about there was a paper plopped on your desk like 10 years ago or something was that when you were at Harvard in regards to I call the vagus nerve the big bad voodoo daddy.
That's a good title. I like that. That's a really good one.
For those
When
out
did
there,
that?
I think you said it was, anyway, was that the one by Kevin Tracy?
I can find out. Hang on.
Because to tell the
Heh.
world out there, oh, there you go. To tell the world, the vagus nerve, I call him Big Bad Voodoo Daddy because he is your immune system. I say he is the vagal tone supports your immune system. He
Mhm.
controls a cholinergic anti-inflammatory pathway, guys.
Absolutely. Right.
Right. He controls your digestion. He controls your stomach acid balance, your bile, your heart rate. I mean, so he is really the king of kahunas.
Can you read that? Or is it all fuzzy?
I can sort of.
Okay. The sympathetic nerve, an integrative interface between two super systems, the brain and the immune system. So, interestingly, looking back on this title, the actual problem that I have with the title is that they're not two separate super systems. They're one super system, but they have different components that aren't even mentioned here. This was 19 years ago. This is Pharmacology Reviews in 2000. And I honestly don't remember when this landed on my desk, but I know it made me go, wow, I need to look at that. And they're rabbit hole.
That is the huge rabbit hole. I remember doing the work for the second edition of the chiropractic pediatric textbook. Anyway, long story, and going down this rabbit hole, and I stumbled about Kevin Tracy's paper in 1998, and where he saw that the immune system is really modulated by vagal tone. And so, can we dish on that a little bit as chiropractors? Now, you did a study in your or a clinical trial, correct?
It was not a clinical trial. It was just a retrospective case series. I was playing with HRV because I'm a nerd. I play with experimental systems. I do not experiment on my patients. I observe them. There's a difference in terms of what's that thing you're supposed to get some sort of approval to do that. But I'm a born lab rat. I'm not used to working with humans. I'm used to working with test tubes. So this whole working with human subjects is a whole different ball of wax to me. So I observe my patients and I notice if there's a trend that a lot of people are showing up with the same finding or the same improvement. And I was noticing that many of my patients would start with a lower heart rate variability as measured by standard deviation of end-to-end interval. And over time, that would progressively improve because we know it's not one data point that is important to understand the direction of health. You can't make a trajectory off of one data point. You need at least three data points to make any kind of a line, and you really want more than that. So I started tracing the heart rate variability in patients pretty frequently just to see what was happening. And it turned out there was a really beautiful commonality between many of the people who were having their subluxations corrected with just conservative care is their heart rate variability was improving almost linearly and then plateauing and staying there. So I found that very interesting. And that's what the paper's about.
Oh, beautiful. Where can people dig into that paper?
Now, that's an interesting question. It's published in the Chiropractic Journal of Australia, and I think there's some political stuff going on
Right.
with that journal. So to actually find the article is a bit challenging at this point. So I'm going to recommend that people go to a different resource. It's chiro.org. It's Frank Painter's site. He does such a fantastic job of looking for different research and putting it into a form that chiropractors can access easily. And so if you search chiro.org and heart rate variability, you'll find a link to the full paper.
Fabulous. Thank you for that. Thank you. And thank you for doing that work. So I had sent Alan a few talking points and so forth, and he's like, okay, maybe not everybody out there listening is as nerdy as you and I. So can we
Yeah.
can you break down a little bit? Let's give the audience some simple bullet points about heart rate variability, because we want it high, not low, so people understand that you want a high heart rate variability. That means you're adapting better to your stress. What else do you want to tell them? Just some bullet points for people that might not have heard this kind of lingo before, but are like, that's intriguing.
So the first step is to distinguish heart rate versus heart rate variability. Heart rate is 60 beats per minute. Heart rate variability is, do you have beats that are 0.61 milliseconds, 0.62, 0.59? They should be a little bit different in the distance between adjacent heartbeats. So if you take a 5-minute sampling of your heart rhythm, your instantaneous heart rhythm, you should be able to use just a simple mathematical equation, a standard deviation, to give you an idea of how variable that heart rhythm is. And it turns out that in about, 30,000 PubMed references, that the variability in your instantaneous heart rate is a reflection of how well your body is perceiving its environment, internal and external, integrating that information and executing a timely and appropriate adaptive response. Now, those were a bunch of words, but what that really means is the safety pin cycle. So what we're looking, sorry, go on.
No, good. What I want to break down for a lot of people out there that know that I talk a lot about the sensory motor loop and adapting to our external and internal environment. So our external environment are those 5 FAR senses: sight, smell, sound, so on and so forth. But to our audience, those internal senses, which I believe are so profoundly modulated with chiropractic care, is the vestibular, proprioceptive, and interoceptive. So I just want to throw that in there so we can tie that together for those guys out there. And the interoceptive system or neurovisceral system is modulated by the vagus nerve, by vagal tone. So this is how we're linking everything together for y'all. So when Amy was talking about adapting to what we perceive, remember it's adapting to those senses. So I just want to interject that so we tie this all together for them.
Perfect. One of the paradigms that I use with my patients is your body will only adapt to what it sees. And I'm using the word see in a more general sense, not specifically see, but perceives. If your body does not accurately perceive anything, whether it's your balance, whether it's your blood pressure, if your body does not perceive that, it will not execute an appropriate adaptive response, a change because of that. So both ends of those loop are really important. And the most important thing is that thing in the middle, the integration place. Well, I think that's the brain or something.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so now we also know that there's, we have these brain regions that I say they have to, it's like a marriage or relationship, they have to have the chemistry between them and then the constant communication. And that communication needs to be, it can't be one person in the relationship has more more power over communicating. They have to be communicating. All those regions have to be communicating equally so that they can perceive their world and respond appropriately in a motor function. So yeah, we can just do it forever, right?
I think so. Yeah, this is awesome.
How would we tie this together with the vertebral subluxation, with finding, detecting, correcting vertebral subluxations. And what does that have to do with vagal tone?
I'm going to answer that in a way you don't expect. So, do you know Dr. John Chung? He's in Florida.
Yeah. Love him.
Okay. So me too. He and I actually were overlapping at Life University. He's part of my brain trust. So basically when John says something, I listen. And just today, he was talking about a conversation he had with a patient. He posted this on Facebook, that it was a patient returning to care, and she wanted to have her vertebral subluxations, her upper cervical subluxation, addressed and adjusted. And this patient wanted, John said, I think he had a screen show on his overhead computer, something like that. And she said, "Oh, that's interesting. I wonder what'll happen when we adjust me." So he took a baseline of heart rate variability for this returning patient, did a specific analysis and a specific chiropractic adjustment. And John, it's going to be very specific. It's NUCA. And measured the change in the heart rate variability afterwards. And there was a very strong trend towards positive improvement that was instantaneously, there you go for a readout. I mean, and when you look at that in terms of what is heart rate variability, it is perception of the body, integration of information, and execution of a response. When that improves, that means that the body is literally adapting better. And when the body is adapting better, you can logically conclude that the body will be healthier, because lower adaptation is kind of bad.
And that leads to, let's kind of lay this out. By the way, John, if you're listening to this, you're on my hit list to be on the show. You didn't know that, but
good.
You know,
Good.
I've got my hit list. So anyway, and for the audience out there, this leads to whole downstream neurophysiological consequences, because when we're not adapting appropriately, the adrenal, we're stuck in that HPA axis cranking, cortisol's kicking. Initially, cortisol is anti-inflammatory, then it switches to pro-inflammatory, but there's a whole cascade of things that happen. So we just want to tie that in there for you out there listening, that this is a big deal. This is
big time,
as well as mental health. And we know that 1 in 5 kiddos in this country is diagnosed with a mental health issue. So I kind of want to transition there if we can for a minute, Doc. Okay, let's break this down. Research. If I were to say, is there substantial research for us as chiropractors to say, I mean, we know what we see in our offices. We know that we see these responses, but as far as research, if I were to step in a court of law or whatever, is there research out there that says we definitely affect the vagus nerve?
Ooh. Directly or indirectly?
Let's go with directly first.
I don't think there's adequate research yet. I think it will be very straightforward for us to do. There are great model systems to follow, and I think it is eminently accomplishable. And I think that is something that should be on the high priority list for chiropractic research.
Thank you.
I actually think honestly, it's like shooting ducks in a barrel.
Yeah.
We already know the answer. It's a matter of how to frame it.
Absolutely. And because that's always been one of my crazy missions, is because in your bio, I know you've done a lot of this work. We have the medical arena looking at vagal nerve stimulators and different modes to stimulate vagal tone. And I feel, and I know you're right there too, I can feel it, we should be on the forefront of being able to tell that to the world and lead that chase in how chiropractic can really modulate vagal tone.
Without question.
Yeah, we have all these other entities doing it, and we have the power to innately modulate vagal tone. And I think I would just love to see that be one of the forefronts of where we go.
I would love that. And there's a secondary reason for that. I was thinking about the nature of transcutaneous vagal stim that's being put forth in the medical device arena these days. And you can put an input into the vagus nerve through the tragus, and you can modulate vagal tone that way, and you can measure it. their systems exist to measure what we want to see. But here's a question for you. If you decrease sympathetic overactivation by sensory input to the vagus nerve, therefore vagus tone is more prevalent, but you have not actually affected parasympathetic. If you're decreasing sympathetic tone, and also you're not addressing the subluxation, you're still modulating the system from the outside in. You're tuning a guitar string the way you think it should be, but that may not actually produce the most harmonious chords.
That's a beautiful point. Beautiful, absolutely. And that's where we fit. That's where we have this profound ability, at least we think. Yeah, absolutely. So when we talk about little fiddle farts, the little ones, so we know that there's these critical windows of development. I call it the first 1,000 days. That's fetal development, the first 2 years of life, and that the autonomic nervous system. So these critical windows, there are things the nervous system, the brain expects to happen. They need to happen in that time, and there's things that shouldn't happen. And we know that the autonomic regulation, that vagal tone, heart rate variability, comes on board at the end of the second try and the third try during fetal development. So we need mama to be in balance and adaptable as best as possible. Where do you see these little fiddle farts fitting into this picture?
Couple different ways. One is prenatally for mama, absolutely. And you just reminded me, a friend of mine had a car accident the other day, and she's 5 months pregnant. So that has some pretty serious implications for making sure that she gets that stress response down, for sure. So prenatally, the stress on the mama will be reflected as stress on the baby. And that's literally neurological programming. That's hardwiring. That's hard to fight.
Yeah.
You can do it. It's hard to fight. And then early on in childhood development, if children are subjected to ACEs, adverse childhood events, again, that will prime their nervous system to have a trigger-happy stress response. And that skews the autonomic nervous system towards fight or flight as compared to rest and relaxation. Or if we're talking about polyvagal theory, it skews the response of the nervous system towards fight or flight or freeze. And when that happens, you're setting off an entire endocrine hormone cascade. And we all know that the hormone cascade of stress impacts human health. So if there's anything that could help to redirect the balance of the autonomic nervous system after these adverse childhood events, then it would be expected to really help the long-term health prognosis of these kids who are having these events.
Absolutely. And in that study, they found that the life expectancy of those that had a high ACEs score, the adverse childhood experiences, their life expectancy is to be down by about 20 years.
Yep. And there was a strong correlation too.
Strong correlation. Just last week, I received a recent research paper on positive childhood experiences that will negate, they played off the ACEs study, and that positive childhood experiences will help minimize the responses of the adverse.
Of course.
So think about, if we have these little fiddle farts that have this dysregulation and these adverse experiences, and we get into their lives and we can create a positive environment, meaning a positive perception of their environment, and be a part of being able to negate the adverse events, that is, I just,
beyond profound,
right? And we know that these I call it getting stuck in limbic lock and load mode. It shuts down the frontal lobe, and then but this is so much tied to not just physical consequences, but mental health as well. And I really want to hit home to the audience about what we do as chiropractors has a profound effect across the boards in regards to physical and mental health. Anything you want to add to that?
Vegas, and Vegas, but also maybe Vegas and possibly Vegas.
You think so? What happens in Vegas
shouldn't stay there. Shouldn't stay there. Oh, dang it. I left my iPad in the sun. I was going to give you a title to a paper, but anyways, the Thayer's neurovisceral integration model is a proposed hypothesis, a top-down appraisal of how heart rate variability reflects the handling of stress in life as measured by mental health concerns, depression, anxiety, PTSD in particular. And these studies have shown that higher heart rate variability, not too high because that's instability. It's kind of like blood pressure. You want it not too low, not too high, right in the Goldilocks zone. So higher heart rate variability was lower heart rate variability was predictive of someone developing PTSD after exposure. Predictive of is an interesting word to be able to use in a research study.
Right.
So heart rate variability as modulated by the vagus nerve, and really HRV is a readout.
Right.
So we're looking at vagus function, predicting whether someone will end up with a mental health disorder.
And that's huge. I mean, that's so huge.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we take it back to our little fiddle farts because this is more of a peds show. But if we start out with this little fiddle fart with colicky, not sleeping,
Mm-hmm.
not pooping, right there, because that is, so much, the whole GI system's modulated by vagal tone. We're already getting an outward appearance. I say they're a person's neurological expression, the way they their outward expression is giving you a window into their neurological integrity.
Mm-hmm.
So these colicky, non-poopy, non-sleeping babies, mom has to sit and bounce with them the whole time or whatever. They're telling us that, hey, I'm not being able to adapt to this stress that I'm under.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, okay, I could have you here for hours, and Alan's probably like, okay, you guys stop. What is one last, I know you got a million, but one last pearl that you want to leave the world with? Not that you're leaving the world, but leave this audience with.
The distinction between the traditional approach to management of the human body versus the above down, inside out perspective, recognizing that the system truly is connected in ways that we don't understand or fully appreciate yet, that sometimes it's better to remove anything that is obstructing the system from rebalancing itself than to try to fiddle with the system from the outside in, not knowing what's going to happen. And really, that's what we're doing with the chiropractic adjustment, is we are removing obstructions that are preventing the vagus nerve from doing what it does best, which is modulating and modulating the body and keeping everything in an active, dynamic equilibrium.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Now, I hope everybody can listen to that segment, repeat, rewind, repeat, and be able to articulate that to the world, because that was beautiful.
Thank you.
So I guess we better wrap it up before we get the red flag. But thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your beauty, your talent, and your time with all of us out there in Chiro land. And I look forward to nerding out with you more. And you, so chironerd.com,
Mm-hmm.
correct? And then your practice is your practice website, or where they can find your brilliance at?
pathoflifechiro.com. I named my practice after a Stevens poem. Two paths diverged in the wood, and I took the one less traveled, and it has made all the difference. So that I went from the traditional academic, to where I am right now. And I love what I do. I'm so honored and thankful to do what it is that I can for people's lives, and to be able to share how these neurons fire and create, ideas and stuff with other people who can make use of them.
Oh, that's amazing. And that's one of my favorite sayings. So I think we were sisters from another life, from something else, but
I'm getting that totally.
Again, hey Doc, thank you so much. And I look forward to what you're coming out with, and keep us in the loop. We'll have to do a round 2.
I'd love that. And at some point, you and I are going to have to sit down and have coffee and just like nerd out until all of our brains are, fried.
Sounds like a plan. Hey, God bless you. Thank you for everything you're doing for chiropractic, and just thanks for being you. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for everything you do for chiropractic. You're amazing.
We're all in this together. My mantra now is alone we can make a difference, but together we can make change, and that's where we need to go.
Love it.
So thank you all out there for tuning in. Make sure that you join Dr. Eric Glauke the first Thursday of every month. He has an amazing PED show. And again, ChiroSecure, thank you so much from the bottom of our chiropractic hearts for allowing us to bring this information to the masses and to help serve more children and save more children. So until next month, I will see you the third Thursday of next month.
Today's Pediatric Show, Look to the Children, was brought to you by ChiroSecure and the award-winning book series, I Am a Lovable Me. Make sure you join us next week, right here at the same time. See you next week!